Hey! Does this work? I've got no sound. Right. Right. Oh, it does work. Oh, it does work. So, right. I'm just going to send. I am now live on YouTube. Here we go. Right. So I'm a few minutes early because I decided to be. Because I have no idea whether this is going to work or whether it's not going to work. It does seem to be honest. So what I'm going to do is just wait anyway. Because it's due to start at 9 o'clock. This is very strange, by the way, because there's like a delay on it. So when I actually move my hands like this, in about 10 seconds or 5 seconds, you see me moving my hands like that. So it's that's kind of unnerving to see. It's the beauty of doing audio podcasts is you can edit. So doing live streams on YouTube, editing's a little bit weird, but I'm going to explain all that when I start talking in about 3 minutes. So that works, right? If I go into another screen, then I can see me moving, but then I have to keep doing that to see if anybody's in the chat. Very strange. Multitasking. 2 minutes. Let's go back to the other window, shall I? So I can actually see chat. This is so weird. Thank God nobody's watching. Hello to Mr. Neil Johnson in the chat. Neil, you've broke my cherry. But he was so gentle and loving, so I do appreciate that. So that way I'm not going to sit here and just say nothing for the next however long. I do have some stuff that I'm going to babble away. I just thought, you know what, I'll start at 9 o'clock. Hey! There's some sneaky little stalker from Canada. I'm not going to be one of these people that just constantly says hello to everybody that comes in the chat as well. To be honest, I'm not really going to get more than 2 people in. But this is also going to go out as an audio podcast. So I'm sure nobody wants to listen to a podcast where I'm like, hey Chris, hey Neil. That annoys the shit out of me. So I will not annoy lots of other people as well. But yeah, it's kind of creepy. So, you know, Chris is watching me in the chat. Gotta say, kind of like it. It's, you know, feels like the old days of spying on you and Luke, Chris. So only a few seconds. I've got to say, it's a pain in the butt to set up live streaming on YouTube. You kind of think it would just be a push a button thing, but oh no. No. It's more than that. It's push like 5 buttons. Right, so it is 9 o'clock. Officially, this is the first... is it the first episode? God knows. Anyway, it's the first test broadcast of the From Page to Screen movie podcast live edition. That's a mouthful, isn't it? So are you, Chris. There will be lots of Chris and Neil jokes throughout this conversation as well. Why am I doing a YouTube conversation? It's a good question. Good question. I'm sure Chris and Neil want to know that. Neil, you certainly know the headaches that I've had with the YouTube channel over the past few weeks. I set a YouTube channel up years ago, and I just figured, you know what, I'll just dump trailers and interviews and stuff in it, and you know, people will watch it or they won't watch it. But then monetization sort of reared its head, and I thought, ooh, maybe I could be in with a chance of actually making a couple of dollars now and again, or a couple of pounds even. And so I worked my little butt off, uploading lots of great content, boosting those watch hours, and adding those subscribers. I got past 1,000. I was very happy. I'm not quite at the 4,000 watch hours yet, which I need. But YouTube said, hey, we like you. You can apply early so we can monetize your channel. So I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. They love me. They think I'm great. They must be fans of everything I do. And I applied, and YouTube went, no, go away. They stuck both fingers up at me and went, no. But you can appeal if you want. So I'm like, okay, I'll appeal, please, because, you know, my channel's got lots of great content on it and it should be monetized. And Neil Johnson, he said it should be monetized too. So I appealed, and YouTube turned around and went, with two middle fingers this time, and said, no, you've got too many trailers on your channel, so we're not going to monetize you. So that made me sad for about a week. And you kind of get to the point, I suppose anybody who's creative gets to that point where they go, is it worth it? Should I just jack it all in? Should I just quit? And I never thought about that. I have done it in the past. Thought about quitting and stuff, but thought, you know what? No. I'm going to try and flood my content with more solo created content. So things like this. And what I wanted to do, and I have done a few video podcasts, and Chris, you should come on one at some point, because, you know, I do miss hearing you chat about movies I've never heard of and films that are too graphically violent that I'll never watch. I do miss those days. And so I have done a few video podcasts, but they've been Skype calls or Zooms or whatever, and then I edit them slightly and then upload them to the YouTube channel. However, live streaming is something that's always interested me. So I figured, you know what, maybe I could try that. Maybe I could just try and do it. So I thought, it's got to be easy, and you just click a button and bing, you're on. And then you just add some guests. It's going to be well easy. Nope, you have to install all these weird little bits of software and a lot of faffing. But here we are. Here we are on a live From Page to Screen movie podcast live edition. I'm never going to keep calling it that name. I'm just going to shorten its name to like Dave or something. You know, Chris had the right idea with BTK. So here I am with that. I'll see how it goes. I am still going to turn this into an audio podcast because not everybody, even I don't want to see my face babbling away all the time. And I know I listen to the majority of my podcasts audio version. And I don't want to lose all the work that I've done over the years building up my 25 listeners with my 600 and whatever episodes. So this is just a test to see if it works, if anybody pays attention. It's quite interesting because there's a little screen in the YouTube studio which I'm looking at, and it shows me how many people are looking. So I've had 3 views. Thank you to all 3 of you. One of you is obviously buggered off, so I don't know who the third one was, but I'm hoping it's Chris and Neil that are still in the chat. So, how's things with everybody else? How's things with me? I can't ask how everybody else is because there's just me. Solo podcasting is something that I'm never a fan of doing because it feels really, really weird. Because when you're having a conversation with somebody, even somebody like Rob, you know, it's somebody to talk against. So it's quite easy to bounce off, so to speak. But when you're doing a solo one, you kind of feel like a bit of a tit, to be honest. And so it does take a bit of getting used to me just talking at nobody, even though, people are spying on me. But I like to spy on other people as well, so, not in a weird way. So, yeah, I lost my train of thought. It's like, Jesus. Yes, it feels kind of weird doing a solo podcast, but they do get easier the more you do them. And hopefully if I do quite a few of these, then that'll get easier too. My plan for these is to then somehow work out how to bring guests in. I did experiment on that the other week, and that was just crazy complicated, so I'm not quite sure how that works, but you know what the hell, this is a test for a solo one, and we'll see how this goes. So, what am I going to talk about? Obviously, I've talked about why YouTube. There was no podcast this week. So, for those who do listen to the podcasts, there's been a bit of a gap. Although, technically, this is a podcast, so, and that was because Rob was probably not in the best of moods. He'd been running into some issues with some scam artist telling him off for something. I'm sure Rob will go into that at some point on the next podcast. So that put him in a bit of a crappy mood. Stu Miller's been ill. Neil's been busy. So I thought, well, I can either do a solo one, which I'm doing, a solo podcast, or chase down some guest that I didn't really have lined up. And to be honest, I've been feeling a little bit burned out as well over the past week. I've had the house to myself for the past 2 days. And so, as a film fan, that's bliss, isn't it? You get the house to yourself, you could just watch anything and everything. You could just watch movies all day. I ain't watched anything. Nothing. And I don't know if Chris, I guess, you may be able to tell me in the chat, but do you ever get to the point where you go, you know what, I'm done with movies. I don't want to watch anything for the next few weeks. That nothing interests me whatsoever. So I'm just going to not watch anything. Well, that's kind of where I've been in the past couple of days. I have no shortage of movies. I got tons of the damn things. Some of them are like behind me. I'm just not interested. It's like, you know what, I'm kind of done with movies. I have watched a bunch of TV over the past couple of weeks. I watched the full 3-episode miniseries of The Continental, the John Wick prequel, which is good. I would recommend it. It ain't no John Wick though, but it is quite interesting when you watch the 3 episodes of The Continental to then go back and watch, or I'll go forward, to go back and watch a John Wick film, because it does actually enhance the Ian McShane character, the Winston character. So Chris is saying, yep, let's have a look. Yep, Chris, 2 months, that is a long time, Chris. But I wonder why. It's like, I mean, we all love movies. I've loved movies since I was a kid. But yet, as a podcaster and as a reviewer and whatever the hell I am, you sort of put this self-imposed pressure on yourself to watch everything, to watch every single film possible. You've got to watch all the new ones, you've got to watch all the big ones, you've got to watch all the films that everybody's talking about on social media. You've got to watch them, and you've got to share your opinion. And no, you really don't have to watch every single film. But sometimes you forget that you don't have to watch every single film. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure Chris would agree, it's like if people are paying us a stupid amount of money to watch films and review films and all sorts of stuff, yeah, we kind of have to watch everything. But as far as I know, Chris was never paid for buying Torturecast. I don't make a penny from page to screen stuff. I do it because I enjoy it. So why do I feel this self-imposed pressure to watch every single film possible and every single TV show? Nah, balls to that. It's not worth it. I watched the Meg 2, The Trench, the other week because I liked the first one. First one was daft and it was stupid. And I did finish watching the second one, and it wasn't good. But I finished it, so why did I not just turn it off and think, you know what, I'm kind of done? I don't know. It's one of the downsides to being a podcaster and a so-called film fan who's got a social media presence, is you feel obligated to watch everything. Balls to that. I think I've got so many films from this year to watch, and yet I think when I finish this broadcast, I've no idea how long this is going to last. Chris Gas sleeping bag. Is I'm just going to sit down and watch Oliver Stone's Platoon, which I picked up a slightly better version of the DVD today. So it's got some, there's no extras in the film or whatever, but I'm just going to watch an old film. Last week I watched Night of the Comet, which is great, starring Kelly Maroney. And because I think Rob had watched that, and I'm like, do you know what? I haven't seen Night of the Comet for ages, so I'm going to rewatch it. It's not a new film. Nobody's really babbling about that much on social media. So I'm just going to watch what I watch. I quite like watching films where nobody else is really watching them at this moment in time. Because you go online to one of your many social media platforms, and my God, I'll probably get into them. There's just too damn many of those things nowadays. I have 5 active ones. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. I ain't got time to update all of those all the time. But as a film fan, it annoys the crap out of me how everything's tribal. I went on Facebook earlier, and the amount of threads just bleating and moaning about Marvel, DC, sequels, how much the films are going to make. Oh, look, they're going to bomb. Oh, look how much money this didn't make. Who gives a shit? Who really does? These film fans are just obsessed with the box office failures of movies, and it always baffles me. Unless you made the film, or unless you've got sort of points in its profit, don't worry about how much money it makes. And I'll get to these people say, oh, we're just passionate about films. There is a difference between being passionate and clapping your hands with glee when a film actually falls on its arse. I do not understand that. It's just crazy. So now everybody's... One of the hot potatoes of the week, of course it's comic book related, they always are, is there's a book that's come out about Marvel or something, or Disney or whatever it is, and in it there's some sort of reference to like a single sentence that Kevin Feige apparently made. Now it's set everybody on fire, going, oh look, Marvel are going to reboot. No, Marvel aren't going to reboot. I think they're just rethinking their strategy, because over the past year or so I don't think it's worked very well, because there's been a lot of films that they've said have underperformed. Now when you've got a film that's making $400 million or whatever, that's a lot of money. That's money that, Chris, Neil and I would love to have like even 10% of, but we don't. However, when your film's costing 300 million, then yes, 400 is not exactly a huge profit. But rebooting Marvel, I gave up on Marvel. When did I give up on Marvel? I think just after Black Panther. I think when it gets to the point where you have to do homework to get everything in a movie, I'm done. And I think when you have to get to a point where, and I can't remember which film it is, but somebody said to me, or Doctor Strange or whatever it was, or if you've not seen WandaVision, like the whole series of WandaVision, you won't quite get, whatever's going on in Doctor Strange. So I'm like, I'm not watching homework to watch a film. Kind of done. So I haven't seen a lot of these more modern ones. I haven't seen Ant-Man, Quantumania. I haven't seen Black Panther 2. I haven't seen Captain Marvel. I haven't seen Shang-Chi. I haven't seen... I think the only Marvel TV show that I watched was Ms. Marvel, which I enjoyed because the family were awesome. So they're quite good. Am I going to go watch the Marvels? Probably not. I can't remember the last Marvel film I actually watched at the cinema. I think it was Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think. And then before that it was probably Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and then before that it was The Incredible Hulk. So I don't tend to go to the cinema and watch Marvel movies. I do like Marvel movies. I prefer DC. But guess what? You're allowed to like them both. And I like them both. I like the darker tone of DC. But I have not seen Black Adam. I've not seen Shazam. Too many movies, guys. There's just too much stuff to watch. It's ridiculous. I mean, do you guys remember when you were kids? And maybe there's girls listening to this as well. Do you remember when you were kids and you had like a VHS collection and you had like 10 films and you would just keep watching those films over and over again? God, I miss those days. I really do miss those days. Now you've pretty much got thousands and thousands of movies at your fingertips. Everybody is just pecking your head to watch them. No, I ain't got time for that. I've no time for that. I'd rather just go back and watch The Never-Ending Story, or just, cheer myself up by going back and watching The Seasoning House or something. So it's kind of bonkers. But yeah, so I'm talking about the. I don't want to watch anything. So, and Kristen is 2 months. I don't know if I could go 2 months. I think I've gone about a week and I feel a bit guilty. I shouldn't, because nobody's paying me to watch movies. But I think one of the problems that's caused this burnout for me is I've just spread myself too thin. Too damn thin. And because I'm working on the YouTube thing, I'm doing the podcasting, I'm doing the website, I'm doing 5 different social media things. I've got a documentary to try and edit and carry on, which Neil Johnson is helping me with. So that documentary is about the making of the Mimi trilogy. So clearly the short films are probably never going to come out. And what I wanted to do was something with the footage and all the stuff that I've shot and all the photos and the scripts and all sorts. I want to turn it into something. So what I'm going to be doing is making a documentary about how this film fan decided one morning that he was going to wake up and he was going to shoot some short films, and how easy it would be, and how successful they would all be, and how it wasn't, and it didn't, and they never happened. So I sat down with Neil virtually, I think like a week or two ago, and I'm like, Neil, interview me, ask me stuff about the Mimi trilogy. So we sat down for probably about an hour, and he interviewed me over Skype, but I had my 4K camera pointing at me, just capturing my responses and stuff. So I'm going to use that, chop it up, start incorporating it into the stuff I've already shot. At some point in the next week or two, or whenever Neil's free, we will do the next section, which will involve me sitting down, chatting via Skype with a 4K camera filming me, and Neil will quiz me on the filming, the actual filming of the stuff that I did film. And then the final segment, which we'll probably do whenever, will be... I keep reading what Chris is writing. I'm more interested in what Chris is saying than what I'm saying. Yes, it will. Brilliant, Chris. I'll get you. You can watch it first. I will send it you when it's done. And then the final one will be the what went wrong, and why the film was never completed. And I can at least turn it into something, and it'll be interesting. And I'm not shy in going, yeah, I kind of thought it'd be a lot easier than it was. No, it ain't. I think I might stick to making documentaries now because it's a lot easier. So I'm working on that. Like I say, podcast, YouTube, social media, and bits and pieces and stuff. But so I'm working on that. So yeah, spreading myself too thin. And then at some point, I need to find myself a job, because I am now 4 months and 3 days since I quit my customer service job for a multitude of reasons. I do feel a lot more relaxed. I maybe haven't used the 4 months off as much as I could have done, but I've done quite a lot. I've caught up on a whole bunch of stuff, so it's been good. But then at some point I need to start working out how to get some money back into my bank account. I'll probably look for a working from home role or something like that, unless Netflix come calling and go, hey, we want you to have your own movie show. I was on the BBC actually last week. which was weird, which was a funny little story. And I'm going to try and get the episode and put it on the YouTube channel so everybody can take the piss at me and have a laugh. So there's a TV show called Boiling Point, and I liked it because I liked the movie. Then they made it into a TV show. So I tweeted out that I really liked the show, and the next thing I get this private Twitter DM, or X as Elon prefers to call it, and it's from this TV program called Points of View, which has been running since I was a kid. And it's a show where people just, they talk about the programs that were on TV, and then they play little clips or show screenshots of tweets or whatever it is, going, I really like this program, blah, 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 blah. And they contacted me and said, we saw your tweet about Boiling Point. Is there any chance that you could record like a 2-minute video of you talking about it? And then we might use it on the program. So I'm like, all right, I don't give a shit. I'll give it a go. Would be kind of cool to be on the BBC. I don't know if Neil, have you ever been on the BBC? Haha. Maybe not. And so I did this 2-minute video with against the backdrop that I'm at now, with no logos or anything. It was just a white wall. And I was positive about the program. And then, because it's a program that's set in a restaurant, I ended the clip going, mwah, chef's kiss. And I think that's what got me on the BBC, because that clip was actually used on the BBC, and they included probably about 30 seconds of my my review on Boiling Point. And then, of course, when Annette saw it, she was just laughing her head off and had to show all her kids and stuff, who then laughed. But I'm like, screw you lot, you ain't been on the BBC, have you? No, you haven't. I have. So that's kind of cool. That was another little string to my bow. So I can add that to my list. And I'm hoping that the BBC will contact me and say, we think you should have your own movie show. And then I'll be Chris, come on, join in. You can be on the movie show too, and we'll be like the new Siskel and Ebert. That would work. So yeah, so I've done that. I have no clue what job I want to go into next. I haven't got a clue. I don't really want to do customer service again, because generally most customers are pain in the arses, aren't they? But we shall see. Not the first time I've been like this in my life, where I'm like, I have no clue as to where my direction's going. There are a bunch of things that I really wished I'd done over the past 4 months. I really wished that I carried on and wrote more of my book. Yes, I'm writing a book. It's actually my autobiography, which I started years ago. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to write some of my life story down. Because believe it or not, some of my life story is kind of interesting. Neil can testify to that, because he sat down and he interviewed me once about some stuff. And I think it's currently about 150 pages. And, the 150 pages I've written is far more interesting than the pages I haven't written yet, which kind of makes me a bit sad, because I used to have quite an adventurous, cool sort of life that was headed up. And now it kind of feels like I'm like that, sort of slightly going downhill, not a rapid cliff drop, but just sort of a stagnant, I think, is probably how I would describe it. And I think that's probably the side effect of just spreading myself too thin, not really concentrating 100% on one thing. It's in fact concentrating 10% on 10 things. So I maybe need to slow down and work out how to compensate with that. But that's always an ongoing process for everything. Now, one of the other projects that I'm working on, just in case I didn't have enough shit that I was working on, I don't have a name for it. So at the minute, I've just called it a video shop project. And I don't know whether it's going to be an audio podcast, a documentary, i.e. audio podcast, but, with video footage in it, or a typed up article, or maybe all three. But it's going to be my experiences through my life connected with video stores. Now, just to give you a bit of an overview, I was born in 1971. So I was around when the VHS era took off. I was also around during the video nasty craze here in the UK in the early 80s. And so as a kid, I used to, and we're probably talking around 1982-ish. And I've worked that out because I'll get onto that in a minute. I used to go to school, clearly, although some may think I didn't, and finish primary school, and then I would walk home, because that was what you did when you were a kid. You walked home. There was not taxis and shit everywhere. And because my parents didn't get home from work until 5 o'clock, school finished about 3:30 or something. I do actually need to contact somebody and go, what time did school finish? Because I honestly can't remember. So I used to walk home, and during sunny weather it was great because I just hang out in my back garden. I had a big back garden, so I could climb trees and run up and down roofs and stuff like that. True story. But when the weather sucked, which when you live in a coastal town in Scotland, often the weather does suck. You don't want to be hanging around in the back garden for an hour because you get soaked, and that's not good. So what I would do is call in this nearby video store. It's called the Falkirk Video Store. I don't know why it was called the Falkirk Video Store, because Falkirk is a town that is nowhere near the town that I lived in. So, go figure. But it was called the Falkirk Video Library. Sorry. And I used to just call in there, and I used to just probably spend like 45 minutes to an hour every school night. And the staff never bothered me because I wasn't really a pain. I wasn't causing any disruption or whatever. I would just spend all that time just looking at the video boxes, turning them over. Now, I was looking at video boxes I was probably not supposed to look at. Now, I don't mean the porn ones like the Electric Blue and Playboy and all that sort of stuff. Too short to reach those. I was a small kid. But that really interests me anyway. But I would look at a lot of the horror stuff. And so I think there's a story to tell in that, going down memory lane on that. I'm conscious that I'm not just divulging everything that's in this video project on a single podcast, because that kind of ruins the point. So there's a lot of stuff in that when I was a kid. I remember the first video recorder that my family had. It was a top loader VHS, and it had a remote control with a big long cable. There were the blank videotapes were like, I think the longest one we had was 60 minutes. And so when films were on, I would have to pause it to cut out the boring bits to try and make the film fit on this 1 hour tape. I remember doing that with films like The Black Hole, Star Wars, all sorts. So there was those. So there's the whole video store era of that. Then when I moved to England, which was 1987, I found a new video store to wander around. So I was like 15, nearly 16. They told me if I was 18, they would have hired me because I just knew so much about movies at that time that they would have hired me. They didn't, because I wasn't 18. Then I ended up getting a part-time job in a video store around about 1991, 92. So I'm obviously a little bit older. I'm like 21 years old. And so I've got that whole experience about what it's like working in a video store. Then around 1996, I was put in charge of the video store. And so there's that whole side of things. And then around 1999, I bought a video store. And so there's the whole type of stuff that I can chat about, what it's like to actually own a video store. And then in 2003, I closed the video store because the rental market just died. But all through my life, there's been video store stuff. And so I want to do something with all of that. I don't know, I've mentioned it on previous podcasts and stuff. And I think it'll be an interesting project. In the same way with the Experience Comic-Con documentary, which is on this YouTube channel somewhere. I did that documentary because it was me going to Comic-Cons as a customer, punter, so to speak, then a panel host, and then press. So it gives different views to the one event. So I think with the video store one, I think that'll happen. I sat down yesterday and I was thinking, right, what films, what video boxes do I remember that were in this video store? And it was things like The Deadly Spawn, Happy Birthday to Me, Driller Killer, I Spit on Your Grave, The Bogeyman, the original Friday the 13th, that big old Warner Brothers box, the sort of ones that you could squish, Poltergeist, Evil Dead, The Exorcist. I remember I used to own the original rental copy of The Exorcist, which was, for a while there, was worth a fortune, but now not so much because you can get it on Blu-ray. But a lot of these horror films I would never have watched. But as a kid, you look at the back of the box and that's all you can go off. You look at the pictures and you're like, what the hell is this? What's going on? Who's done that to her? It's crazy. I remember Driller Killer being a very influential one because the cover that we had here in the UK, which I'm not going to put on the video because it's massively graphic. It's a guy with a drill bit in his head and just mountains of blood poured out of his noggin. And I remember thinking, that is the most horrific thing I've ever seen. And then years later, I managed to watch the film, and I'm like, it's pretty much the most horrific film I've ever seen. It's not that the cover was better than the actual movie of Driller Killer. Years later, I actually met Abel Ferrara as well, which was just mind-boggling. Very strange but lovely guy. Just bonkers. I don't know how much cocaine he's done in his life. Who knows? Or how much coffee or whatever. But I do. Chris has just mentioned in the chat there is a video art book. I don't know if he's on about the same one, but I've got one that's got lots of 80s films in it, and it was a book by Tom Hodge, and it's all VHS covers. But it may be, if there is a horror one, then maybe I might pick that one up as well, because it would probably fuel some memories. I did dig out a book which I bought years ago and read, and it was called See No Evil, and it was all about the video nasty era, all the banned movies and stuff like that. A lot of them I haven't heard of, but that was quite an interesting book. I'll send Chris a picture of that book, and if he's not got the book, then I'll post it to you, buddy, because I think you'll like it. So it was interesting after I flicked through it again and remembered some more films. But yeah, so the video project is something that I'm quite excited about. I'm just trying to work out how to do it. And that VHS cover art book, you'll actually notice me in that, Chris, if that's the same one, the one by Tom Hodge, because he contacted me through Facebook because I'd shared some pictures of a video store that I had, and he got very excited about it, and he said, I'm doing a book, can I use these pictures, and can you write a little bit about your video store? And I can't remember what I wrote, but I remember sending him the pictures, and then he's included me in that book. So I'm near the back, you'll see pictures of my video store, and you'll see mention of me in a book. So it's a very good little coffee table book, and it will take you down memory lane. If you were frequenting video stores in the 80s, you flick through this book, you'll see pictures of like The Gate and Gary Busey's Eye of the Tiger and all that sort of stuff. And you're like, oh my God, I remember these. Yeah. So I've been very nostalgic of late when it comes to movies that I'm rewatching, when it comes to books that I'm reading, when it comes to podcasts that I'm listening to. I enjoy these memory lane type podcasts. I don't know why. I don't feel like I'm ready to shuffle off planet Earth just yet, but I don't know. I think I enjoy being a movie fan back in the day more than I do now, and that is probably because it's a bit burnout. I think, I don't know. It's when you do the press stuff, there's not a day goes by where you're not having a screening link chucked at you, which is great. It's nice that people want you to watch the films, but there's only 24 hours in a day and you got to sleep. And so if you actually watched everything that you were sent, you ain't getting any sleep, and there needs to be about 35 hours in a day, and that is not good. So I think I'm like 3 screeners behind. I can't be bothered. So I might try and get back into it on Monday. So Neil in the chat, he's mentioned he was in the Daily Mail. I don't like the Daily Mail, Neil. The Daily Mail are bad. Let me tell you a little Daily Mail story. So early 90s, so around about 1993, there was a horrific murder case here in the UK where 2 very young teenagers, if in fact they were teenagers, they might have been younger, abducted and killed a young lad. So that was, obviously that's horrific. And so the Daily Mail went, ooh, movies made them do it. In fact, Child's Play and Chucky made them do it. So what we're going to do, because we're the Daily Mail, is we're just going to go on a witch hunt for Chucky. And we're going to get Chucky banned. Right? We're going to get rid of it. And for weeks it was ban these sick movies, get rid of these sick movies, and blah, blah, blah. There's no evidence at all that these 2 kids had seen Child's Play or horror movies. But the Daily Mail just went after them in a witch hunt. And they succeeded. I remember being in the video store, 1993-ish. Maybe the date's a little bit off, but it's around 1993, 94. And my boss at the time came in, he said, right, we need to take all the Child's Play films off the shelf. So I'm like, why? My defence, why? He said, because it's been banned. I'm like, no, it isn't. They've not been banned at all. It's not a good way to speak to your boss, by the way. No, they haven't. They've not been banned at all. Well, no, they've not been banned, but we just take them off the shelf. Well, why? Why take them off the shelf? Well, everybody's gone mad. Nobody's complaining. So anyway, so all the Child's Play movies came off the shelf, all got boxed up, put on there. These things used to make a lot of money. Child's Play. It was one of those films that just constantly made lots of cash. And they were taken off the shelf. And it was never banned, but it was withdrawn from stuff. And so one of the very, very first things that I did when I took over the video store was put the Child's Play films back on the shelf. And people were happy because they could rent them again, because they were never officially banned. But yeah, screw the Daily Mail, Neil. they're not a nice paper. They're very much like witch hunters. And I'm never a fan of that. I do remember what it was like back in the video nasty days, where things were just banned that had no business being banned. Oh, there's this film called The Evil Dead. That must be horrific and violent and brutal. Let's ban it. Have you seen The Evil Dead? Don't get me wrong, it's not a kids' film, but it ain't a video nasty either. So yes, so screw the Daily Mail. Where was I before you distracted me, Mr. Johnson? So yeah, so video store project, that will be something that probably happens. I've just got to work it out and then formulate it for the best thing. So other than that, what am I going to do? I don't know. This test has been successful, I think. And the reason that I decided to sort of do this, I've been thinking about it for a while. But there was a friend of mine, John Shelton, who runs a YouTube channel. It's Mr. Shelton TV. So go have a look at his. And he'd sent me a message yesterday. He said, is there any chance you could just watch some of my videos just to, get numbers up and stuff? I went, yeah, it's fine. Not a problem. And so I was watching some of his videos last night. And whilst he does do some creative, arty type short films and stuff, he also does this, where he just puts a headset on and just chats, and people were in the chat, and I'm looking at it going, I like that. I could do that. Why am I not doing that? So that's what sort of spurred me on to do this today, rather than putting it on my list and go, do you know what, I'll do that in like March or something. So I had to quickly do a backdrop thing. So as you'll see on my left hand side, I've got a nice little Top Gun picture. On the right hand side up there, It's the it's a bit of a delay there, so I can't quite see what I'm pointing at. So we've got here, that side, Rabbit, signed by Jen and Sylvia Soska. Behind me, there is this, which is signed by the master himself, John Carpenter. I actually have 2 John Carpenter autographs. I seem to be having this little like league table of autographs. So I have 3 Sarah Douglas signatures, 2 John Carpenters, 3 Oliver Stones, 1 David Cronenberg. And at some point what I'm going to do, and this was thanks to Chris for coming up with this suggestion, and I have started doing that on the YouTube channel, is some of the Geek Collection little videos. So I've done the Hammer box set collection, which is that one. So I did this one, which is quite a cool little box. I'm not going to do it again, but I did that one. So there's a video of that one. There is also another one I did of my Back to the Future 4K trilogy box set. So I've done that one. And at some point I'm also going to go through my autographed Geek collection. Now I know that's just a photo, but pretty much with each photo there will be a little story attached to it, and I think there'll be sort of fun little videos to do. So I've got those to work on. See what I mean about spreading myself too thin? You know, it does happen. Podcast wise, I do miss some of the podcasts that aren't around anymore. And yeah, I'm talking to you, Chris and Luke. I kind of get why you stopped doing Bind Torture Cast, but the selfish part of me thinks, why did you stop doing Bind Torture Cast? But I kind of get it. I think at some point what it would be nice if you did was put them somewhere, so that people could listen, because the feeds disappeared, because I discovered that when I bought a new iPod, and I'm like, right, let's put them on. And it was gone. Chris, it's gone. Bind Torture Cast was not there in the iTunes RSS feed anymore. So I'm hoping that you do like me, whereas you actually keep an archive of the MP3 files. Maybe there's something you could do, but hopefully you're too busy creating NRX music, which I'm very much looking forward to. 30th of October, the arrival of your new EP. I'm very excited, and you're doing a watch party, which I will be updating the Facebook page with the watch party details and stuff like that. But I'm always excited. Over there, which you can't see, I have an actual CD player, and yesterday I was listening to the CDs that you sent me. It's like a couple of years ago, I think, wasn't it? I do still listen to physical CDs. I do. And then I usually put them on my iPod and then listen to them that way. But I do enjoy putting an actual physical CD in the player and listening to it that way. I still enjoy physical media when it comes to movies. You can see a whole bunch behind me there. Just waiting. Let's have a look. Chris, you didn't? Oh, Chris has just horrified me. So, in reply to my, please tell me you kept all the MP3s of the Bind Torture Cast episode, he didn't. Oh my God, I have two copies of all my things, all my podcasts. I might try and get them. I'm going to try and steal them from Spotify and try and get them all for you, Chris. That blows my mind that you don't have copies of them. I've got to have copies of everything for stuff like that, because I figure one day I'm just going to drop dead. Probably not mid-podcast, although that would be kind of cool because that would go viral. And then there is just hundreds of hours of my ramblings. So Annette listens to the podcast. I say she listens. The last episode she listened to was episode 300. And the next episode I record will be episode 696 or something like that. So she's got a lot to catch up on at some point. But she actually said, I'm going to listen to them when you've gone. Which was an interesting bit of feedback, really. It's like, hurry up and die so I can listen to your podcasts. Who knows? You better listen to them fast because the feed might go down. But yeah, Chris, oh my God, you don't keep copies of them. Wow. That's a little bit blown my mind. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different way of doing it. But I mean, you did a lot of shows. I think I first heard Chris on the All Horror podcast, if I remember rightly enough. You used to guest on there sometimes, or did you used to co-host? But that's where I first heard you. And then I think you mentioned Bind Torture Cast on one of those episodes, and then I jumped over to Bind Torture Cast and just used to listen to Chris and Luke flirt with each other and then talk about movies that sometimes I'd never heard of. But it was still an interesting discussion anyway. And then the All Horror podcast just went away and then never came back. So yeah. So I think it's kind of worked, this test. It's also the longest solo podcast I've ever done. Because normally I think, right, I'll do a solo one and I'll chat for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then it usually gets to about half an hour, and then I kind of run out of stuff to say. Whereas this one's just been around the 50-minute mark. So that's not a bad start. Once I can actually work out how to get other guests in, then obviously it will... It did, yeah. That's Chris just confirming that it was All Horror. Oh wow, okay. Well, I probably went back. So you were on All Horror, but after BTK started, I think I probably would have gone back then and caught up on the back episodes. Time, where's time gone? I think if you were to tell me what year you started BTK, it'd be like, oh my God, it's been that long. Time definitely flies. I think I've been podcasting since like 2011. It's like nearly 13 years. That's insane. It's insane to think after 13 years, I'm still podcasting. I'm still not being paid for it. Where do we go wrong, Chris? Where do we go wrong? To be honest, I could do a whole podcast on podcasting because I've actually got 260 episodes that I do have copies of because I back them up, Chris, that are just not even online, because I used to use TalkShoe as the hosting site, still do, but they had a server farm fire, and so all their stuff, 11 years ago, Chris, woo, they had a server farm fire and all their stuff got lost. So for my podcast, there is episode 263 upwards. So there are 200 odd that are missing. And a lot of those are with co-hosts that anybody who's listening to the podcast now will never have heard of. Harold from Florida. Don't even know if he still lives in Florida. It's got a very early appearance by John Fouts. He was on one of the real early episodes. It's like episode 10 or something like that. I interviewed him as a guest. And then I did a little bit of a horror show, I think, for a while with Stuart Miller, who, not as expert as Chris is on horror films, but, pretty close. Very opinionated as Mr. Miller and Lauren. So we used to gather once a month. We used to do this horror podcast. And so I need to sort of do something with those episodes. But I don't want to just put them in the feed now, because people will be like, why are you talking about shit coming out that came out 10 years ago? It makes no sense. Am I drunk? So I'll do something with those. Maybe they'll end up on YouTube or something like that. Who knows? But I do enjoy podcasting. The video one's a little bit weird because the screen I'm looking at now directly is time delayed. So when I do that, 10 seconds later, then I'll be able to see me doing that on the screen. I've got another one to the right of me, which is a bigger version of me, and that's even more delayed. It's a bit odd, but I could probably get used to it. And it's been nice having Neil and Chris in the chat as well. So you guys are awesome. Always have been awesome, and always will be awesome. So for the rest of the night, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. It's actually 10 to 10 here in the UK. Cowboy time, isn't it? Old joke if you want one. And so what I'm going to do now is probably wrap up this episode. Go dig out that See No Evil book take a picture of it, email it to Chris so you can have a look, and then flick through it and go, oh yeah, I remember looking at that video box when I was a kid. Half the films I've never seen. I think anybody who remembers Happy Birthday to Me, it was just some young kid with a shish kebab stuck in his mouth. And as a kid, when you look at that cover, you're like, why? That is not the way to eat your shish kebab. So I don't know what's going on in that film. Do I want to know? The Burning, that was the other one I remember. Which I do have on Blu-ray somewhere, but I've never ever seen it. So yeah, I'm gonna. How do you wrap up a solo podcast when you've got guests in the chat room? It's not easy. So much easier when I'm chatting to Rob, because I'm like, Rob, I've had enough of you. I'm going. Bye. So anybody who does watch this on YouTube, this has been a test broadcast. Hopefully you found it a little bit entertaining. To be fair, Chris and Neil stuck around, but I think they might just be a little bit charitable. So bless them. Do check out as well, if you like your podcasts, seeing as Chris doesn't do one anymore, his wonderful other half, Lydia, and Wes. Wes is not Chris's other half. They do a podcast called Dead Air. Now I think it was like last week, I had a double bill of their episodes because they were talking on episode about Dog Soldiers, which is a great film, and then Howling, which is another great film. So it's both like werewolfy films. So do check out the Dead Air podcast. If you love really, really awesome music, head over to Bandcamp and check out Anorex. I always fuck up the spelling of Anorex. You have a weird font for it, Chris, sometimes when I cut and paste the Anorex thing. So yes, go over to Facebook page and check out Anorex. And I'll put this in the show notes or whatever so you can have a look. Because Chris does wonderful music, and I really do. And Neil, you should, have a word with Chris. Chris needs to score a movie, seriously, at some point. The music that you do, Chris, and I'm not just saying that because you're there, or am I, is pretty impressive. So I would love to see a film soundtrack by you. So that's, because I've said it, needs to happen. So Neil, if you're not familiar with his music, I will send you some links, but it could work. No pressure. And I think so where was I? Yes, this has been a test broadcast for the YouTube channel. So there's no funky graphics. I haven't learned how to do any of that stuff. I may need some extra software to dick around with stuff like that. If you are listening to this as an audio version, it has been slightly choppier than usual audio versions because it's a YouTube thing, obviously, and I'm doing it solo. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just watch some shit. Do you know what? If you're busy or whatever, just go onto this channel, find a playlist, press play. You minimise the screen, switch sound off. You don't even have to listen to me or watch me, but it gets my hours up. Do it on the creative stuff that I've made as well, not the film trailers. And then hopefully when I can resubmit to YouTube in November, they will monetize my website and I will make $1 a year. And I'll be very happy because I'll actually be making something. Woohoo! And if you want me to subscribe to your channel, I'll do that too. But yeah, thank you very much, Chris and Neil, for listening. Thank you to nobody else for listening because there's only been you two here. But anybody who listens in the future, be nice and leave a thumbs up. Don't be leaving a thumbs down because that's mean and it'll hurt my confidence. So, and also the thing I've got to work out, guys, is how the fuck do I stop a live stream? Does anybody know? Because I don't. So yeah, that could be fun. Maybe do we just close it? do we just shut it down? I don't know. But yeah, enjoy. However you're spending your day, watch movies. And if you watch a movie and you don't like the movie, don't worry about it. Just forget it. Watch another movie. There's always plenty of movies to watch. So I'm going to probably look like an absolute dick while I spend about 2 minutes trying to work out how to stop this live stream video. So have fun. And thanks to Chris for the nice little motivational looking forward to the next one. I'm hoping there is a next one. So we shall see anyway. But take care and have fun. I don't even know if I'm still here. I may well be. There we go, I've worked it out. Jesus. So much easier audio podcasting, guys.